I from my heart place to your heart place, Millie, to Heart Place Hospital podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to chat with you today.
Yeah, me too. And I was just looking back to where we connected, and it was actually February 2020, so pre-pandemic.
Wow.
Was our first message together. And I reached out to you. I had just started a job. I was a school nurse at an all-girls high school. And I had been for a couple of years, I'd been running a workshop called Be Beautiful. So it was around empowerment for young women. And there were women's circles, young women's circles, very creative, very uplifting. And I still, even when I reflect back on it now, I'd never even been to a women's circle myself. And here I was creating a women's circle for young women. So obviously something really innate in me that wanted to create that. So yes, I reached out to you, and then our next message was quite quick actually, and it was that I'd come across a young woman who was experiencing quite a significant eating disorder. So I reached out to you because it was really quite foreign to me. And you were able to connect me with a couple of events that were happening, although I don't actually think they ended. I think they actually ended up happening, but it was a great connection. But I just thought I'd read out your bio so that people can understand where this conversation is coming from. So this is Millie, and you're a Carolyn Costin Institute certified eating disorder recovering coach and a neuro-linguistic programming practitioner. You battled anorexia nervosa for 15 years, and you very nearly lost your life to the illness. Your medical team gave up on treatment for you and told you to consider palliative care options, but you had a miraculous recovery which was a catalyst for a complete career change for you. Sadly for us, you left your hometown of Auckland, New Zealand, and you moved to your happy place, the Sunshine Coast in Queensland, Australia, where you've become determined to use your lived experience to help bring eating disorders out of the shadows and into the light. You've dedicated your time to eating disorder advocacy and eating disorder recovery coaching. And you help clients around the world to gain freedom from their eating disorders and claim their lives back. You have your private practice Healed, so Heal ED, eating disorder, and for several years you've worked with Sunshine Coast-based charity End ED, or Ended, where you were involved in numerous projects, including the establishment of Australia's first residential eating disorders facility, Wandi Narinda, is that right?
Wandi Narinda.
Yeah. And you believe that no matter how long or how hard someone's journey with an eating disorder has been, full recovery is always possible, and you're living proof of that.
Always possible. No matter
Always
how long or
possible.
how hard that battle's been, you can always fully recover. And I will shout that from the rooftops till the day that I die.
Amazing. And I just felt so called to have you onto the Heart Place Hospital podcast. As I've shared with you, and as those who are now listening to previous podcasts, it really is around the pain to purpose stories, and it's around taking getting the message out of the mess. And I know, like, I've been on several of your webinars. I was a Gumboot Friday provider for several years through the pandemic, and I came onto one of your webinars with Mike King, and a couple of things that I still to this day absolutely remember, and I've had permission from my daughter to share this. I then went on to have a personal experience with my own daughter with an eating disorder, and so on that webinar, you mentioned, you talked about that it's like a loaded gun and then the trigger goes off. And I totally resonated with that. And that was very much part of mine and her healing journey towards recovery. And then the other thing that you mentioned that's always stuck with me, and I'd love to talk to you about this more, is that eating disorders or mental health or mental declines, emotional declines, whatever language you use, aren't a secret, and that we need to bring them out. So I'd love to dive into that a little bit more with you, because just through our experience, that was quite challenging. And but yeah, I guess where I generally go, and your beautiful bios alluded to this, is kind of like, how did you get to here? And you're like many of my guests, and I consider myself that too, with my own mess to message, pain to purpose story, is what's it been like? Like, what's it been like smashing these glass ceilings to now get in front of others who are now having these experiences? What's that been like for you?
Incredibly empowering, rewarding, transformational, all of the things. I feel incredibly grateful that I have the opportunity to literally turn my pain into my purpose. I've turned something that was an absolute hellish 15 years of my life. It's something that I very nearly didn't survive, into something that is literally the reason that I get out of bed every morning. I really do truly believe that it all happened for a reason, and that I am here doing the work that I'm doing because that was the reason. I often would be on my bedroom floor freaking out about something, bawling my eyes out, throwing my hands in the air, thinking, why me? What is going on? And now I know that there was a reason. I needed to fight that long and that hard to show people that you can come out the other side. And I think there is nothing more powerful than lived experience when it comes to mental illness. I truly, truly believe that. Until you have been there in the trenches day in and day out, it's almost impossible to begin to understand what that feels like and what that person then needs to help them get out of the darkness and into the light. Once you have been there, you understand, you truly get it, and you can sit there. Sometimes, there's an amazing eating disorder clinician, Dr. Jennifer Gordiani, in America. And, Dr. G always says, she's like, we've got to sit in the shit with our clients. We can't take the shit away. We're just going to sit there in that shit. And I remember her saying that to me one day, and I was like, you know what? You're so right. That's exactly. Sometimes that's what they need the most. It's not someone to come in and try and fix it or try and somehow make it magically better. It's actually just sitting there, empathizing, acknowledging, and being willing to bear witness to that and hold space for that person. And I think until you've really been in the trenches and understood what it's like to face that mental torture every day, it can be quite hard to understand, well, why wouldn't that person want me to help them fix that situation? It's actually not about fixing, it's just about allowing space and holding hope. I think that's one of the most important things, is you've got to hold hope for that person, no matter what. You've got to hold that hope, because often there are so many times in my journey where I felt completely hopeless, completely devoid of hope. But having people around me that continued to hold that hope without a doubt, no matter what, was absolutely key to me getting out the other side and now living what I literally, and I don't say this lightly, feels like the life of my dreams.
Amazing. Oh, I love it. I love it. And I just, these are why I want to get these stories out, so that we can see there is a reason and a season.
Oh, absolutely there is. Even
Yeah.
when you can't see it, even when it takes years for you to really see what that reason was, it's there. It will be there. You will find that silver lining.
Yeah. And I love that, Dr. G, your shit to manure, isn't it? Like, you really need it to be able to feed others. And
100%.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So my journey, I definitely had disordered eating throughout my life. However, I never had an eating disorder, and but I just got really curious when I was a school nurse. So the first book that kind of really got me interested, so this is before it became very personal for me, was Caitlin Moran's book, one of her books, and her daughter had eating disorder, and it was her that recommended this book, Eva Musby's book, Anorexia and Other Eating
Yes.
Disorders.
Yeah, that is such a absolutely incredible
Ah,
book. Yeah.
so I actually read that book. This is before it became my personal journey, and I shared it with many, 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 many parents as a school nurse. And it really actually set me up for when it did become a personal story for me. And also the fact that I'd had my own decline in mental health 8 years previous, and I'd had so many people hold space for me, non-judgmental, safe, soft lands in that time. I felt really so much more equipped when it was my daughter to experiencing this. And this is where I want to go back to where you talked about the loaded gun and the trigger. And I sat with that for ages and I thought, what is her loaded gun? And it really stepped back to, and this is what Heart Place Hospital is all about, was our pregnancy together. And I know for me, I just didn't have that education. I didn't have that knowing around how much code I was sharing with her as I was carrying her. So I was a nurse, and there was a lot of times where there was a lot of adrenaline that was shared during that pregnancy. And then I have both my babies were very big babies, at 11-pound babies, and so they're born by emergency section, which was not my plan. My intention was to have the Madonna birth and the baby to the breast. And the first baby, so my daughter who experienced ED, it was a really battle for our breastfeeding journey. So again, she received this code through this sacred waters of breast milk, of me being very anxious. So I know that for me to be true, that was her loaded gun. And when we reflect back, there was always lots of conversations like what's for dinner and have we done the shopping, and we like right from a young age. So food was a real control for her. And then it was when we went through COVID, and we were in Auckland at the time and in lockdown, and she was in a really vulnerable age. Well, we all were, to be fair. And an event happened at school that triggered that gun, and I remember the day, and so much so. And I just, I really wanted to share that for others, because that was really pivotal for me when you shared that with us in the webinar. It really helped my nervous system and helped me guide her through her journey. And something that I would always ask her, and this is again from you, thank you, was how can I help you? How can I help you? And I share this all the time now to other parents as well. So I just really I wanted to highlight, thank you, but to share with others.
Yeah, that you remember those things. I mean, I think the way that I always talk about it is the genes load the gun and the environment pulls the trigger, right? So you've got some are genetically predisposed. For me, genetically predisposed to it, and then I've got all the personality characteristics: type A, OCD, high achiever. And then for me, the environment was being put into an all-girls private school, right? However, interesting that you bring up about birth, because when I was literally on my last legs, a week away from dying, and I found this incredible NLP therapist, she pinpointed right back to when that I'd had a traumatic birth. Now, my mum had been told that she'd had a epidural. She hadn't. She was in severe pain, 48 hours, and I was a 10-pound baby. 48 hours in labor, and it's like, well, don't tell, and forceps delivery. And then I was like in an incubator. I can't quite remember what was wrong with me. I was in an incubator for a while. And so that is a really traumatic way to start your life, right? And so there are all these little things that culminate in the development of an eating disorder for someone. And they can sit there latent and then, as you say, be triggered off by whatever it might seem a little thing in the big scheme of things, but because it's layer upon layer upon layer of stuff, and then it's just kind of a bit like the straw that broke the camel's back.
Yeah. Wow. I feel like I need to give your mum a hug because I've been through one.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, amazing. And then the other thing that I remembered, which I'd love us to talk more about, because it's not even eating disorders, it's all mental illness, is And you talked about, not making it a secret because our mental illness feeds off secrecy. And it's really interesting. That really stuck with me. And I really, like with my husband, I said, it's not a secret. This is, we're going to share this because we need support. And that actually didn't happen for us. It backfired quite a bit, actually. And I think, it was just really interesting. Most people went wide. And I guess because I've had lived experience of mental decline, I always lean in. So I find it quite surprising. But I just wondered if there's anything you could add to that. Are you finding that with your other clients? Did you find that with did your mum find that?
Yeah. Look, I think when it comes to eating disorders, it's really, really important to absolutely dispel the myths and stigma, break through the shame. And it is really important to stand up and be counted and be open, whether that's in a parent or carer role, whether it's as an individual yourself. It's so, so important. There's nothing to be ashamed of. I always say to my clients, you didn't go into a supermarket one day and choose an eating disorder off the shelf. That's not what happened. You didn't ask to get unwell. And I think it's really, really important that none of us chose to be in this situation, but here we are. And I think we can all learn from one another. And so I think that's definitely, I was always very open about what I was going through. And I think that was, and at the time, so this is, oh gosh, how many years ago now? I don't even want to think. This is when I was 12, 13. I'm 36 now. So, a long time ago, it wasn't really the done thing. We were known as the eating disorder year at school. The year above us was the drugs and alcohol year. We were the eating disorder year. And not a lot of people kind of spoke about it. But I was like, well, yeah, I have anorexia and this is what it is. And I think that was really, really good. And my parents were also open with what I was going through. And interesting that you say that. I think there was support to an extent, but then there was also a lot of judgment about how my parents were choosing to deal with it. The fact that my mum had stopped work to look after me, to literally save my life, and the judgment that she received from that in terms of, oh, you just need to give her some tough love. You need to go away, with my dad more, and you need to do this and that and the other. And it's like, don't throw judgment around like that. You have no idea what it's like. Unless you have an eating disorder in your house, you have no idea what goes on behind closed doors. You have no idea what it's like to deal with watching the person, one of the people that you love most in the world, and almost feel powerless to help them. And I know as a mother, that feeling like innately when you have a child, well, you want to feed and nourish that child, and it's one of those innately motherly things to do. Now, how traumatic to not be able to do that. I mean, make it worse, my mum was a chef as well, so it's like she, it's her love language, right? And I was absolutely rejecting it at every turn. And so it is really, really important that if you are family, friends, or colleagues, or with anyone who has an eating disorder in their family, that please don't judge. Please be respectful. Please ask them what you could possibly do to help, rather than judging what they're currently doing. Because if you're not in the trenches with them, you honestly don't know. So again, it's like what you said to me, what you said about how you'd remembered that I'd said to you about asking your loved one, what do you need? How can I help you? Rather than just assuming. It's the same with friends and family, like asking, okay, what do you need as a carer? What can I help you with? Because often people don't know. And I think eating disorders still have this mystique about them, this mysterious sort of weird, I don't even know the word for it, but it is quite odd. People sort of have this weird, almost like a voyeuristic, want to kind of watch it happen, but don't really want to be involved because tiptoe around it sort of thing. And I just think that all needs to go. It's no different to depression. It's no different to any other mental illness. It's a mental illness, and full recovery is possible, but there needs to be, it takes a village. And so don't shy away from it. Don't go wide. Lean in.
Yeah, totally. Oh, that's the way I roll. I Thank you. I love that. I love hearing that coming from someone else. It was interesting when we were in the thick of it. I always, because I'd been through my own journey, I always knew that goodness was going to come from it. I always knew that she was going to make good of it. I really and so every time worry would come in, I would almost use it like a message, like the phone was ringing and would say, "Hey, it's worry." And I would transmute that worry into love, and I would literally push love out of my heart towards her. And so I didn't use a lot of my energy on things that I knew weren't going to be supportive of this journey we were going through together. And the other thing that I did as well is I actually thought, right, I need to do some healing work on me, because this is she's grown inside of me, we're connected, and I really felt like I needed to do some releasing. And so I engaged with, she's a medical doctor, but she's also a quantum healer. And we did some release work together. So it was probably like, if you looked at time, it was like a couple of hour meditation that she took me through. And literally 4 o'clock the next morning, my daughter woke me up and said, "Mum, I'm hungry," and started eating. So we had this, it was a really amazing journey. Also part of her journey was she also engaged with a lived experience Neuro-Linguistic practitioner as well. So she really enjoyed that, but she would say to me that she was learning more from me than she was from her. But for me, it was really nice just to have someone else, and it almost felt like I didn't have to answer the phone if worry rang in that period. Yeah.
That's so incredible that next morning after the
Yeah.
healing, wow, so amazing.
So amazing. Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think this is the thing, it's about having can be the most amazing parent in the world, but having that sort of outside sounding board for them, just having that outside voice of reason can be really, really good. Because I know that often when you're in the throes of anorexia or bulimia or binge eating disorder, whatever eating disorder you're suffering from, often the ones that are nearest and dearest to you are the people that bear the brunt of your fury and your rage.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. I've always seen it kind of as a different role. Like I feel like I've been my children's portal into this world, and I've been through my experiences so that I could be the light at the top of the lighthouse for them, so that then they have a safe space for them to really experience the mess and find the messages from it. And so, like, and often even to this day, people will say, "Oh, I wish we could, help your daughter, fix your daughter," and I'm like, "Oh no." She doesn't need helping and fixing. She's really good. But what I would love us to do is to help and fix our society and our system, so that we can hold space as we're navigating these shitty periods.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's so important. I could not agree with you more. There's so much change needs to happen, at a federal level. A systemic change needs to
Mm.
happen. And I think it's something that I have been incredibly disgruntled with over many, many years, and especially within New Zealand, is that there is just this lack of acceptance of the need for there to be more eating disorder support across the board. Not only we need more community support, we need more residential facilities. We need people to wake up and realize, anorexia is the highest mortality rates of any mental illness. Like, hello, we cannot be. When I run webinars, one of the hundreds of parents that turn up, it just breaks my heart. People are desperate for support. They are desperate for accessible support,
Mm.
accessible, meaningful support, I would say, not some sort of clinical faceless, like, here's a worksheet.
Mm.
People who truly get it, people who are offering effective strategies, and also ongoing support, not a random thing that happens once a year. It's like, what do you do on the other 364 days of the year? You're just battling it out on your own. You know, and yes, there are podcasts and there's all these things that we put out there and resources and things like that. But you're also having that real life, you know, those support groups, things like that you can go to is essential. And it's just not available.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I, having been a school nurse, you know, in front of 900 young women, and I mean, my big knowing is that that we're raising young women in a very patriarchal, masculine world, and so which we're not designed to live there. And so when I was I had the wellness room, and it was a very warm, welcoming space. And then I've then gone back and attempted to advocate at my daughter's school and explain to them that everybody, and especially young women, need spaces to rest, and we need to provide at the absolute minimum. We need to provide safe spaces where they can go, particularly when they're menstruating, to actually have a pause and regather. And this go, ringing the bell, moving to the next classroom, just doesn't fit with how we're designed. And I really, truly believe it comes down to more education around our rites of passage. So we've talked about motherhood. I've had a similar journey to your mum, and menarche or menstruation, motherhood, and then the other transitional phases as well. Otherwise, we are just going to be band-aiding. We are going to be the ambulance at the bottom of the cliff. And I truly, and I have this, I am a hope merchant in this, that if we were to understand and celebrate and provide a society where we can live as we're designed, that we will see a significant reduction in not only mental but physical decline, because as you alluded to, it's our experiences and our environments that manifest our mental and physical reality.
Oh, absolutely. Environment is absolutely key. I mean, that's a big reason why I no longer live in New Zealand and I live over here in my happy place, because, you know, it's so important for me. I know what I need to keep my mental health wonderful. And that is, I need warmth. I need a lot of sunshine. I need to be somewhere where I'm not feel like I'm caught up in the rat race. I'm not a city girl anymore. I need to start my days by the ocean. You know, what I do is really stressful. It's amazing, but it's intense. And so I know what I need to balance that all out. And I think that's a big thing that people often, I guess, maybe don't even consider, because we're born into a certain way of being or living or family situation. And it's like we don't see outside of that. And it's sort of, we focus on what's expected of us, and we're meant to go to university and do this and do that. And these pillars of success, so to speak. What if we just completely break out of that mold and do what feels right for us? You know, do what, like, literally, that was me, you know, in LA one day going, I'm going to give myself 48 hours back home in Auckland and pack up my whole life, and I'm going to move to the Sunshine Coast because it's my happy place. I don't know anyone. I have no job. I don't know what's going to happen, but like, that's what I know I need to do. My heart says that that's what I need to do. My heart and soul are just calling me there, and I will do that. You know, some people would just like, what is she doing? Like, this is crazy.
Yeah.
But, you know, it was what intuitively I knew I needed to do. And I think that, you know, often my dad ribs me about the fact that, oh, yeah, you're so affected by the damn weather. And I'm like, yeah, I am. So I've made a conscious choice to live somewhere where the weather suits me. And
you're like a pot plant, Millie. You need sun and water.
Absolutely. But it can seem like such a little thing, but the little things when it comes to keeping ourselves well physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually are actually the big things.
Yeah.
And so it's so important, as you say, to create that environment that is going to nurture that.
Yeah, definitely. And that's something you don't know about me, but we did the same thing 2.25 years ago. We left Auckland and moved north to Mangawhai, and for that very same reason, to live on holiday. And of course, what's come out of that, because I am now been able to bridge from that pain to purpose, because I've gone into spaces where I have my medicine, which is, swimming on the beach every day, regardless of the weather, and walking in the forest and many other things, hugging my dog and crafting a life that really best suits me. It means that I can come back and I can serve at such a better space. So I know that previous to that, I was a very unhealed healer, whereas now I really feel very strong in saying that I'm a healed healer, and that I can come from a place of from my heart place and from my center, and I feel like I really stand, and I feel that in you too, like a PO, really solid in the ground with a backbone, and be able to share and be an example, because we've not seen examples of this. I didn't, the same as you. And often people turn around and say things like, it's all right for you, or da-da-da, or something like this. I'm like, look, we had to dare to be different. We had to take radical action, and we'll continue doing it, because that's how we're designed. We're actually designed to move and shift and change and shape shift, and our society has kind of trapped us into, like you're saying, the education, the university, the hamster wheel, the paying the bills, the tax, paying paying. Blah, 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 blah.
Let's not get started on tax. Let's just leave tax.
Yeah,
right
let's
out.
just not go there.
No, a rabbit hole in itself.
Yeah, totally. But it's interesting. I was talking to my daughter the other day, and just such wise. Oh, I love it. So excited to see where this all takes her. And she was just like, I still advocating at her school. And I've been. She goes, "Oh, Mum, they're all dodgy." And I was like, yeah. And then I said, "Oh, well," she said, "and working's dodgy because you have to pay tax to the government." And she said, "And working for yourself and all these things." And I said, "So what are you going to do about it?" What are you going to do? So I love being around all these change makers, these chain breakers, these, they're going against the status quo, and it's going to be a really, really interesting time.
Oh, absolutely. And that's what it's all about. And I think it's surrounding yourself with those types of people, because they lift you up, and they make you realize that you have the power. We all have the power to make a difference in this world and to leave this world better than we found it. Even if we don't feel that we do have the power, we absolutely do. It's so, so important that we actually are serious about taking that on board and going, what is the legacy that I want to leave? What is the legacy that I want to leave? And some people listening to might be like, oh God, that's a little bit deep. But it's the reality. We're only here on this earth, on this planet, this wild and wonderful planet of ours, for a short period of time. So what would you like to reflect back on and go, okay, yeah, I did that. I made that difference and I've left that legacy. Like, what is it that you would like to leave this world with? I think it's so important to look at that.
Yeah, definitely. So what's because we don't have you here in New Zealand, but obviously you're still available to the people of New Zealand.
I've got clients all around the world.
Yeah,
Lots of Kiwis.
I love it. What do you see? What do you see like from New Zealand? I know Australia is a lot more progressive in health. I connect a lot with Australia, and so much more progressive, but I don't want to. I want us to be hope merchants. I want us to be visionaries. And I just know that New Zealand has done so much pioneering stuff that why not this? What is it you think that we can do? I mean, I keep getting kicked in the womb to stand up and show up and speak up. What's something that you think that people like myself and many mums like me who have had this experience can do?
To be honest, I think it's just about getting your voice out there, being heard, standing up and being counted. If you see something that you don't feel is right, make some noise about it. I recently had a parent of a client see something in the media that she wasn't happy with, and she wrote in and was just like, "Look, this is actually unacceptable." It was to do with a headline or a story around eating disorders, and I think even though you feel like you might just be a little drop in the bucket, still stand up and be counted. Say what you've got to say. Lived experience, as I said before, is absolutely invaluable. So don't feel like, oh, it's just me, that no one's going to want to hear from me. What you've got to say is actually gold. So please share it with people. I think also, if I often say this to parents, if you're in the hospital system or you're whatever treatment system, and you feel like there's just a number of things that are just adding up that are just so wrong in the way that you're treated as a parent or that your loved one is treated, write them down, document them. It's so important. Date it, document it, what's happening. I think it's all too often people think, well, what's the point in that? Nothing's going to happen. But you never know. And if you've got that there to use, I think it's about a groundswell effect, right? We have to make some noise, otherwise they won't pay attention. And it's an unfortunate situation to be in, but I think also just sharing your story as well to help people feel less alone. I think that in itself is super, super powerful. Sharing stories of lived experience is something that's more powerful than we can even begin to comprehend.
Amazing. Oh gosh, I'm just having noise downloads while I'm talking to you, because we've commercially consented a physical hospital on our property in Mangawhai, which we accommodate frontliners who are in burnout, and we support them to heal their boundary wounds and advocate for themselves and others and craft a life that best suits them, so that we can keep their expertise and their knowledge. It may not be traditionally back in a traditional role, but now I'm thinking, maybe the first New Zealand eating disorder accommodation.
Yeah, well, look, I mean, my dear friend and colleague Christy Amato is doing amazing things down with Recovered Living New Zealand down in the South Island. Yes. So I helped, her with a lot of that, and she's just incredible, and she has fought so hard to bring that to fruition. I'm so incredibly proud of her. And so, things like that, we know things like that work. And so the more that we can do that, I mean, I think that would be amazing if you establish something like that up in Auckland. It's definitely needed. That's for sure.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah. Well, I mean, that's all a big part of creating Heart Place Hospital as a New Zealand registered charity, so that so these spaces and places, soft lands I call them, are accessible to everybody, so there isn't barriers in place. And I know when we were feeling very lost and alone, the only space that we could find that was appropriate was opposite her school that had triggered her, and was reachable for us financially, but morally I couldn't do it, because I just kept thinking about other young people and other young families who couldn't do it. And interestingly, I invited them to Heart Place Hospital because clearly they'd lost they had compassionate fatigue, because I was saying, hey, I'm feeling really lost and alone. This is not feeling right for our journey. Can you suggest something else? And it was literally, right, well, we'll just go on to the next person then. And we were left, without a paddle. So I total hope merchant, total love rock star. I still feel in my bones, literally in my bones, that we're at a precipice of change here, and feminising our health and education system is going to be the panacea to providing these soft lands, these spaces that we can feel really comfortable and safe to share these stories. And that's why I started the podcast, because our news and media aren't sharing these stories. And I thank you so much for coming on and for everything that you actually helped me with over the last couple of years with those two little lines. Yeah, so I just wonder if we can end this conversation with just if you could share with us what's coming up in your heart place, like what people can how they can access you and what they can receive from you and how they can find you.
Absolutely. Well, it's just been an honor to be on here. I just absolutely loved every moment of this. And I just love knowing that little gems of wisdom that I have planted. A client did this to me the other day. She's like, it's just like you plant these little seeds and you just help me to make them grow. And I think that's something that I feel really privileged to be able to do, whether it's with, clients that I am seeing or with webinars, or even a lot of people find on my Instagram that they get inspired, which just means the world to me, or the podcast. So I absolutely take clients from all around the world. So I've got New Zealanders, Australians, I've got people in Europe, US, wherever you are. I am more than happy to have a discussion with you around doing some eating disorder recovery coaching, some NLP. I love to help people, so please don't hesitate to reach out. So you can email me, millie@heals.net.au. I'm sure these will all be in the show notes. You can get to my website, www.heal.net.au. I also have, so I did a podcast many years with End Dead, which is called End Eating Disorders. You can access that via my Instagram, or my new podcast called Re-Nourish. So we've just launched season 2 of that. And so there's lots of amazing content on there. And so, yes, my Instagram at Millie T, so MILLIETNZ, or at Healed Recovery Coach. I'm always active on there as well. So which way you want to contact me, please feel free to do so. I would love to hear from you. And I also run a support group free of charge every fortnight as well, for Australians and New Zealanders. So if you would like to join that, let me know. Any other questions that you have, just flick me a message.
Amazing, Millie. Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing your time with us. And we look forward to spreading this far and wide and really putting an end to this and to eating disorders. Can
I
go that far?
absolutely love to be able to do that.
Yeah.
Maybe one day we could say that we've achieved that. Fingers crossed, fingers and toes.
Oh, totally. Oh well, we'll with all of our fingers and toes, we're good to go.
Absolutely.
All right, Millie. Take care. Thank you so much.
Thank you.